All right, welcome everybody back to the Kitchen Table Talk, a Break the Stigma Inc. podcast, where real unfiltered conversations about first responder mental health and wellness happen. I'm Michael Long, firefighter, paramedic, and founder of Break the Stigma Inc. This show is a place for all of us, firefighters, EMTs, police officers, dispatchers, medical professionals, to pull up a chair, share stories, and talk about the parts of the job most of us don't see. Here, we're going to laugh, we'll reflect, we'll learn, and we'll remind each other it's okay not to be okay, because mental health is just as vital as your physical health. And together we can break the stigma. So grab a cup of coffee, take a seat, join us at the table for this episode of Kitchen Table Talk. And I'm very excited to announce today that we have our first guest for this podcast. Also, we have our wonderful co-host, Nick Robben. So outside of Nick, we are bringing in our first two guests, which include Lindsay Simons, is a licensed therapist with mental health and wellness advocate and owner of the Empowerment Spot, a counseling practice located in Town and Country, Missouri. She provides anxiety and trauma therapy for individuals and couples. She has years of experience helping people. She has dedicated her career to empowering individuals, including first responders, to process their trauma, live more fulfilling lives. And as a certified brain spotting practitioner, which we will dive into today, Lindsay incorporates this trauma-focused technique to help her clients release the emotional strain. We also have Dena. Dena, how do you say your last name?
DiStefano.
DiStefano. I just didn't want to butcher it on live air. So.
I appreciate you asking.
Dena, we have Dena DiStefano. She is the owner and founder of Balanced Therapy and Wellness. She's located in Kirkwood, Missouri. Licensed clinical social worker for 20 plus years in clinical roles, including hospital, schools, and outpatient agency settings. Her practice focuses on helping adults counsel couples and navigate relationship struggles and life transitions. I currently see my first responders in her practice and deeply understand the impact that I apologize because my printer messed this all up. So, sees first responders on one-on-one individual sessions with relationships and the family unit. She also serves as a mental health professional for the St. Louis Collaborative Family Law Associate, which walks. I'm going to let you just touch on that one because my printer butchered this. Okay. So, other than that, she is a mom, which is awesome, which is its own stress. So I can only imagine being a therapist and a mom. I know how it is being a first responder and a dad. So outside of that, she says self-proclaimed foodie. I like food, so we might touch on that a little bit today. Traveling. So from there, we will let's just dive into this. So Lindsay, Dena, I'll let you guys take it from here. As I butchered your guys' intros a little bit there, I apologize, but I'll let you guys do the real introductions for yourself.
Well, thank you, Michael and Nick, for inviting us on. Again, my name is Lindsay Simons, and I'm a licensed therapist, and I'm the owner of the Empowerment Spot. So my practice is located in Town and Country, as Michael had mentioned, and I work with individuals and couples, primarily focusing on anxiety-related issues and trauma therapy. So my approach to therapy is, traditional talk therapy and cognitive in my work, but also body-based and brain-based, and that's where that brain spotting stuff comes in. And I'm sure that we'll dive into that a little bit later. But I'm just happy to be here. This is awesome. I'm really proud of you, Michael, for kicking off this podcast. So thank you. Happy Halloween.
Yes, happy Halloween.
I can't tell you how many times Mike and I have spent hours talking that probably should have been recorded. So I'm proud of him too for getting this going. So that we can record some of this, even if I'm as awkward as the first episode.
But Nick, you have so much knowledge and you are so charismatic. In my initial meetings with Michael, I asked if I could do a couple ride-alongs with Fit and Fire and had the chance to meet you and support, just be a part of that process with you. And it was so cool. And you made me feel so comfortable through that. And so thank you. And I know you're going to get a little bit more comfortable as this process goes on. You've got a lot of knowledge, and like I said, you're an awesome guy.
Well, now I'm definitely uncomfortable. Compliments make me uncomfortable. So I'm going to go.
For spreading them on.
Yeah.
I am Dena DiStefano. Like Michael said, I am the founder of Balanced Therapy and Wellness in Kirkwood, Missouri. My practice does focus on relationships. So I work with individuals and couples. What drew me really to relationships is I really believe that the relationships in our lives dictate the quality of our lives. And so, whether that be through the romantic relationships, whether that's with our coworkers, whether that's the relationship that we have with ourselves, I think that the relationships that we have in our lives really just dictate the quality of our lives. And so that has really drawn me and my passion to serving people and couples and really wanting to just dive deeper into that and really help people feel more connected and fulfilled and safe in those relationships. Like he mentioned, I am a self-proclaimed foodie, and so I do love food. I also love to work out. That's sort of my self-care. You will find me up at 4:30 in the morning, heading the gym most days of the week. And I am a mother to 3 children. So I have 2 teenagers, one who's getting ready to graduate high school, one who is getting ready to turn 16 next weekend. And then I have a 10-year-old adopted daughter as well. So they also keep me very busy.
Oh, I can only imagine. I'm still in the beginning stages of parenthood, and I don't look forward to the age you just said, 16. I don't look forward to the teenage years, but 16 scares me already.
It's getting ready to scare me. My daughter is the oldest, and when she was turning that age, I was a little bit more confident than I am with my son getting ready to turn 16 and setting him loose in a car. So, there's a little bit of fear there, but, I have to have faith, which I'm trying to do. So, yeah.
Yeah. I just remember how I was as a teenager, and that's what scares me.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we're going to have 3 of the 4 boys in high school at the same time. So I can only imagine what that's going to not only look like, but smell like. We have reached the Axe phase in our home. So we're wearing cologne now. So my upstairs is beginning to smell like frat house.
Sweat and cologne.
Better than the firehouse, but
Yeah.
Man. So I am actually a stepmom, and so my stepchildren are 18 and 20 and have a long history of hockey. So in addition to boy smells, we have good old fashioned hockey smells too. So
yeah, hockey has its own smell to it. It's amazing you can play in such a cold atmosphere and just smell like that from all the sweat.
Yeah. So Dena and we met actually kind of probably a couple years ago through a collaboration with other therapists, and really bonded on, I think, our kind of approach and pride with therapy and our roles. And it just naturally evolved into this really natural collaboration where we often will refer to each other. So there may be, different cases where Dena's working with a couple and she might, recognize that the individual could really benefit from some of their own work. And then vice versa. I mentioned that I also work with couples. And so there's times where I'm working with a couple and I know that Dena just is a great therapist. And so she also sees individuals from time to time as well. So, so then I'll share, I'll refer that person to them, knowing that they're in trusting hands. But we really like to just kind of utilize the whole relationship, approach in working with couples and individuals and collaborating together. So.
No, and I love that. And I think, as for people that don't know, Lindsay is on our resource network already on our website. So if you check out our website, she is listed there. Dena, I believe you're going to be at it soon as being
the big tryout today.
Not quite a tryout, believe me. Lindsay's word alone speaks volumes, so I trust her as much as I do anyone else. But we just have not made updates to our website recently because I am very far behind on making updates. But no, on your guys' perspective of families and working together on relationships and things like that, from a personal perspective, I can't say how important that is and how much we don't address that issue. And I know, like, doing mental health talks and presentations and education over the last 2.5 years, we definitely touch on what's wrong with us, but we never really address what that does to our families. and for myself, and we talked about it in the first episode a little bit, going through my own crisis. I know that made a massive impact on my wife. Luckily, my children were young enough. One wasn't even born yet. She was still baking. So we managed to miss that, but I can't push enough how important those relationships are. And like you said, even if it's a spouse or just family dynamics in general with people that are in your support system, understanding what we go through and also the things we're challenged with. And as well as we do, dealing with first responders, we're really good at not listening about what's wrong with us. And then if you tell us what we're doing wrong in our households, it's amazing how much we'll deny that too. So just kind of diving into that a little bit for the listeners that are first responders. I just like, one of the things we like to do here is kind of those tips and tricks and skills, things that people can take away from this for the day. What is kind of some suggestions on your end for when it comes to navigating shift life and then also having a family at home? I know I have my ways, but I'm no expert by any means. I'm just a dumb fireman like the rest of us. So I want to hear it from the expert side.
Yeah. Well, as you both know, the job, demands compartmentalization, but at home, compartmentalization diminishes intimacy, right? I mean, that really can cause disconnect in our most intimate relationships. And so one of the suggestions that I have for, first responders that I work with is to be able to take some time to maybe decompress so that you can reconnect when you get home, right? Because going from one to the other is just really hard, and you both can probably speak to this because you live it. But taking time to transition from, on duty to off duty, before you sort of reconnect with your loved ones in the home, I think will give you sort of that mindset switch from going from compartmentalization to sort of being able to open back up and feeling like you are sort of back in a space where you're able to, be the version of yourself that's open and safe with your family and your loved ones and your partner. Because it's a different mindset than what your job demands of you. And I don't know if Lindsay wants to follow up on that.
Well, I would actually just love to hear a little bit about
Yeah.
Michael and Nick and kind of what their experiences have been in making those transitions. I would absolutely, piggyback off that it's so important to be able to kind of take this hat off and then kind of zen out, right, for a hot minute and then think, okay, how do I put my dad hat on, my husband hat on, whatever hat you're putting on when you make that transition. And so have there been things that you, Michael or Nick, have found are working for you, or do you find that it's something that maybe you also are like struggling with and kind of seeking some information about that also?
Nick, I think they just put us on the spot. we tried to put them on the spot, and they turned that around on us hard. No, I love, just for a quick on my own, what you said about the compartmentalization and taking it home and then going back to work and things like that. I think one of the things a lot of us struggle with, including myself, is we're always told leave work at work and leave home at home. And when you're gone for 48 hours and you're still trying to, essentially, for lack of better terms, run your household from the firehouse. Because anytime there's an issue, and I'm sure Robben can attest to this, it can be minor, it can be major. You're not home, you're getting a phone call, and there is nothing you can do over that phone to fix it. Right. The water heater broke, the kids are crying, somebody broke something, something's not working, and you just want to be like, what do you want me to do? I can't leave. I can't bring the fire truck home. But I know I preach it a lot, is like, people try to compartmentalize the home life and the work life. And there's no way, if you go to work leaving a bad home environment, that you're just going to shut that down and fall into the job and not have any of that on the back of your mind, and vice versa. Bad shift, go home. And like you said, that decompression phase for me. Me and my wife have an understanding when I go home. She usually asks me how my shift went. And usually I don't tell her, because it's not worth going into all the details. But she knows if I say, hey, I'm going to take 10 minutes and I'm going to, go. I just need a break. I just need to go change clothes. I need to turn it off for a minute. Um, she's well aware that, those are my decompression moments. And I know a lot of us, and Nick's kind of got a medium drive. I've got a pretty long drive home. I get that 45 minutes to an hour in the car where I can do what I need to do to decompress. But there's people that even we work with, and there's probably many more out there that you got a 5-minute drive home. There's no way to decompress in that 5-minute period.
So in our family, my wife she was an ER nurse. She works for a functional medicine doctor now, but she understands, what it's like to drive home after a long shift, sometimes in silence, just to unscramble your brain. One thing I've tried to do over the last few years is give her a heads up. Like if I had a long night, a long shift, whatever I had going on. And usually for me, it's not just the calls. We talked last week on the podcast. I'm a new officer. I'm making that up as I go along. To the guys, I'm the cool older brother, but now I have this responsibility placed on me. And then on top of that, I explained I'm also the union rep for the district. So I am the voice between the administration and the guys, and that often follows me home. So I've had to set up a lot of boundaries and almost make some work hours with that. Like if I'm off, it's still, you only have between 9 and 5 to contact me. So people will email me some problem that they have. I don't start working on that till 9 a.m. And after 5, I mean, it better be a pretty big emergency to get my attention. But going back to what it was with Becca, I always let her know how I'm going to be coming home so that she can prepare, because she may have a very long honey-do list for me to do, and she may be headed out the door to work right when I get home. And so maybe she'll just table that list and tell me about it later in the day. Hey, in the other room, there's some things I wanted to get done or whatever. But just knowing ahead of time that I just may need to just sit down and hang out for a while. There's a lot of times too where I'm a pretty serious napper, and I'm very good at it. It's a skill of mine. So I may just have to come home and get 2 hours of sleep to be, who I am for that day. But then there's other times a year where I'm getting off, and, when we play baseball, there's 3 boys in baseball. It's all weekend long. All 3 are in tournaments. So balancing that schedule, those are the days that I dread the most. And, I love being a coach and I love being there for my kids, but I have to come straight from that environment straight into another one full of 10-year-olds, which isn't much different than the firehouse, but it is, it's still stressful. And I'm glad that all my boys are on teams with understanding parents. We've gotten really lucky with that. They're happy their kids are playing ball. We're not out there to win. They're happy that their kids are learning the game. And that makes it a little bit better. But anytime a first responder, if I can preach something back to a first responder spouse, is when they are coming home, just kind of give them a little bit of space or encourage them to tell them what they need. First responders are really bad inside their own brains about taking time for themselves, because you're trying to keep that hard shell on. And I don't want help or handouts or, I don't need time. I got this. And Mike found out that you got this until you don't got this. And, we always talk about Mike went deep down the crisis road, and I've never been down that, but I don't know how close I am at any given time. And I'm doing all the right things, but at the same time, when do I punch my ticket? Is it a ticking time bomb, or are these right things going to keep me out of that? So the steps that we can learn from, practitioners like yourselves to keep us from going down that path are going to be what makes the difference. And I love that we're talking about this on Halloween, because for a lot of first responders, therapy is scarabee. So it'd be more of scare. Would it be scarapy? Yeah. So, because they don't want to go tell somebody else their problems. They're protecting their egos. They're protecting their internal voices. It's again, I got this. And if I tell someone else my weaknesses, I'll lose like a superpower. And I think a lot of first responders feel that, and that's what keeps them out of therapy. And then by the time they reach crisis, a couple spot checks of therapy is probably not going to fix their problem. It's a good start, but now they're in crisis and now they're spinning out and they don't want to talk to anybody.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I really just appreciate about Break the Stigma is that, proactive approach to therapy, realizing that it's not super scary, or it doesn't have to be. And again, kind of the thing that with Break the Stigma, what Michael's doing, being able to vet or kind of really lean into providers who have that cultural competency, that awareness of what it's like to work with first responders, and having that understanding that there's already this really big fear of this experience, or this badge of honor, this well-intended place that I don't maybe want to talk about my feelings because I don't want to add that burden to you. I'm strong enough. I can handle this. So yeah, I don't know if that was a full thought, but
Yeah.
just kind of to
I,
piggyback off of that.
yeah, I think we all struggle with that alpha personality, where we fix everyone else, and we talked about this in the last episode. We're really good at fixing everybody else's problem, plus some. But when it comes to our own problems, we will dodge that left and right and come up with any excuse in the book. I'm just as guilty as the next, obviously, because I managed to let mine go till it went to crisis. But it's amazing how we are scared to just, it's a new environment. You're going in and doing something that basically, for a culture we have, that we were told never to do. Don't talk about your feelings, bury that, drink it away, do whatever you got to do. And then now we're trying to normalize, hey, go talk to a stranger about your feelings. And it's like, oh, that's a good way to sell it. But I think that's where we're doing something a little different with our resource network and our clinicians, and having our clinicians on these podcasts is, and I know, Lindsay, that was a huge thing when even guys at the firehouse still talk about when you rode along with us. They want you to come back just to do free therapy again for a day. But it's
Such a good day.
but it's amazing because these guys, they have an understanding of who that person is. They're not a stranger. You're able to kind of, I don't want to say sell yourself, but kind of give people that comfortability that, oh, well, maybe they do understand what we're struggling with. Because I think that's the biggest fear, is like when we go talk about our feelings or what we're dealing with is, well, these people aren't going to know what we deal with. They've never done it. How do they know what it's like to run these calls? How do they know what it's like to do shift work? But I know for a fact that, the clinicians that are culturally competent, the ones we work with, they do their best to train themselves and educate themselves and ride along with us, or whatever they need to do to understand those environments, and having that comfortability to go see a therapist. I will admit, I still see a therapist every 2 weeks. My therapist, I walk in, and my last session last week, I went in and told her all of the things that were wrong with me, in the past couple of weeks, all of the things that I'm doing to fix it. And she looks at me and she goes, "Why do you come in? Like, what am I here for?" Like, therapist Mike over here fixing his own problems. And I'm like, because you hold me accountable. You are that third party, unbiased accountability that most of us don't have. So I think that's a huge thing to kind of normalize, is having that unbiased accountability from someone that is going to tell you, hey, this is something that's bad, but it's kind of your fault. I think that's a hard thing for all of us to hear, is it's our fault. It's our fault.
Or when we have to say it out loud. I think that was the big breakthrough. When I went to therapy, I fell kind of backwards into that. And I think I got the perfect practitioner for the spot that I was in. And, just her kind of asking, me talking, which is not a surprise to anyone, but her looking at how I was talking, and then, let's think about why you did that, or why you were in that manner. And a lot of the time that I spent with her, I was in fight or flight mode. So I wasn't in crisis, but I didn't realize that I was running on, fumes, basically, and I was in a dangerous place. And it had nothing to do with the calls. It was, at that time, it was actually everything at home. We had a brand new baby, and just a ton of just the basic everyday stress. And I remember just talking to her about like an embarrassing outburst that I had. And she just kind of laughed, and she's like, why would you tell everyone else what they should be doing? She's like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? And it became so clear at that moment. Like when I left there, I felt like I had gotten punched in the face. So that does make therapy scary. But at the same time, I got back in the truck and it's like a light bulb went off. It's like, why would I tell anyone else what they should be doing? What a waste of time. And that was when I became aware of the should word. And then I started to become more aware of how much I was shoulding. And I took that out of my life. And I don't tell anyone what they should do. If they ask me for advice, I'll give it. Mike knows that. And I hope it's usually pretty good. But taking shoulding out of my life and what somebody should be doing and me barfing that onto them freed up a ton of brain space. And that's really important for a lot of first responders who already have ADHD and they have a ton of tabs open and we can't even control ourselves. Now we're going to what? We're going to spend time telling other people what they should be doing. So that was kind of my therapy breakthrough was, I didn't run a bad call that was causing me to lose sleep. I was just overburdening myself with things that weren't problems. So again, it was that learning from therapy. Someone asked me a question about something my own brain was doing that I wasn't aware of. And those are the simple things in therapy that I think we can learn from. So it's not always like these big breakthroughs and these big gains. And we don't walk in and see Lindsay and Dena and say, XYZ happened. What do I do? It's that unpacking over, 6 to 8 sessions of why are you acting that way?
I think it's amazing when a clinician, because I've been told multiple times of like the obvious things I do. And it's like, it's amazing because once they point out the obvious, you're like, oh my God, I see it every day, all day long. I do this. My brain does this. This is how I react. And it's like, I never noticed it until someone sitting across the room from me pointed out the obvious. And for some reason, and it's great, I love that it happens, but we put so much weight in what a clinician tells us when we go see them that like we want the answer to all of it. But sometimes the answer is just, hey, you're shooting everybody. Stop shooting. Hey, you're overreacting. Hey, your brain space is full. Shut some tabs. Hey, your ADHD is just running rampant right now because you won't let your brain take a break. We all know those things. We just don't address it until someone else tells us to do it.
Yeah, and sometimes, go on, Dena.
No, please. I was just gonna add to that. I was in a session with a first responder a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about how he and his partner really, when they get into conflict, really get into this win-lose kind of, confrontation style. And I looked at him and I said, how can you win if she's losing?
Ooh, got him.
Yeah,
that hurt. I know.
And there you
go.
I
hurt for him.
Yeah, and that's
right.
Where I'm just picturing myself having to tell.
I said, can you ever win a war by bombing your teammate?
No.
I mean, you can't.
No,
you can't. And
I know how.
I mean, sometimes it's just those little things. I said, when she wins, you win. When she loses, you lose. Right. And so that mindset is what you have to head into conflict with. It isn't about winning and losing. And I could kind of see the wheels turning a little bit, and then, 2 weeks later go by and we were in our next session and he said, what you said 2 weeks ago totally changed the trajectory of like our last conflict. He's like, that went through my mind. And I was like, you know what? Like, this isn't about winning or losing. And it just changed our complete, like the way we fought this last time was totally different. He's like, it's just like changed everything. So it's like just those little small things sometimes when you can just change someone's mindset or just kind of give different ideas to things. Doesn't have to be all these big, profound sort of, I think sometimes people think therapy is going to be like, wah, 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 and it's not always just that. It can just sometimes be really quick little snippets of things that you're like, I didn't think of something like that. Go ahead, Lindsay.
I'm good. Thank you. I lost my thought. That was so powerful. Like you said, I think it's therapy is not these grand moments, right? But like you mentioned, there's just so many little small nuggets where you're like, ooh, that hit. And so honestly, I'm still over here like, ooh, that was good. That was bomb. That was powerful.
Well, I think you said like those grand moments. I think you nailed it though. The grand moments don't happen in therapy. They happen in your real life
Right.
when you're done
Right.
with therapy and you
Absolutely.
hit those little nuggets. I mean, I've had those moments, and we were just talking about conflict with, your wife. I'm sure Nick can contest to this, is like when you have to tell your wife, oh my gosh, you were right. It almost hurts. And why? Why does it hurt to tell your wife that she's right? Just because you're wrong?
I've been married longer than you, Mike, so I accepted it probably far sooner. But I do have a question. It wasn't on the list, but I'm glad that Lindsay and Dena are here because I think this will help some people. When you, as practitioners, do couples therapy, would you rather see the individuals separately first and kind of get the notebook going and then bring them together? Does that help? Because I say that when another scary thing about therapy, whether you do it through Zoom, you're still taking time out of your day. So, do couples feel like we've been to marriage counseling twice, and they're really good check-ins. The first one was we were overwhelmed by our kids and we didn't realize it, and that helped. The practitioner was not great at couples therapy. I don't even think the person was married, which was weird to take that advice, from that person. But, when it comes to time, I think a lot of people see couples therapy as we're going to go do this together. And I think that creates a lot of anxiety. So I was going to ask, do you like to see people before, during, or after, and then bring them together?
Well, I'll just give my 2 cents and then Dena, you can share yours. I think my approach is really individualized. So, generally when people reach out to me, I do a little bit of a consultation to get an understanding of, some of the things that they're seeking services for and just a little little snapshot of the issues and try and understand a little bit of the dynamic. And so kind of based on that consultation, I'll make a decision on if it would be more effective to meet with them one-on-one and then come together as a couple. But generally, my approach is I'm usually meeting with the couple together for that initial intake. And then as things progress, there may be times where it's therapeutically appropriate to meet with one of one of the party. But generally, I'm trying to keep the relationship together and help the couple, work together through their concerns. And if I am seeing a little bit of that challenge or it's just not helpful, then that might be where I'm kind of recognizing that maybe one person or both people need to tend to some of their own individual work. And maybe couples therapy isn't necessarily appropriate in this moment. Maybe it is in addition to individual work. So it's really individualized on how I'm approaching that whole process.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely with you. I would say a lot of my couples are also concurrently in individual therapy, because, your relationship can only be as healthy as the individuals that are in it, right?
Sure.
And so a lot of times people are bringing, as we all know, individual stuff into the relationship. And sometimes it's people have to work on that individual stuff individually. And then they can sort of, once they work on that, then they can kind of start then tackling the relationship stuff together, But what I found is that if someone's not really working on some of the individual stuff, then when we get together as a couple and they become really triggered by some of the individual stuff, then it's just we're sort of just spinning wheels, right? Because they haven't really gotten to a place yet where they're able to really understand why they're triggered by some of the stuff, why there's a high level of defensiveness, why, some of the things that are occurring. And so, yes, I think that it's really important to have both things usually happening. And, in an initial intake, I see the couple together. And then every so often, a couple may request, like, could we both meet with you individually to just maybe share some things before we do another conjoint session? I will do that. But that's usually a one-time thing where they want to maybe share just some additional personal information, which I think can be pretty informative for me, just as far as like information gathering as we sort of develop the treatment plan moving forward. And then I will only see them again then together moving from that point forward as well. But yeah, that's kind of give something more, Lindsay.
No, I was just gonna kind of piggyback off that, right? That in those situations where maybe you're meeting with one person as an individual, one of the things that I always am sure to communicate is that the couple is aware and they understand that I'm not, gatekeeping and holding secrets for one person or the other, and then creating these like weird dynamics in between the couple and my relationship with them, because it's really important as a couples therapist to stay neutral and to be, an unbiased person for the relationship.
Yeah. So if I'm their individual therapist, I'm not going to also see them as a couple.
Correct.
Oh,
Right.
very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's just unethical, really. And then two, I think that also just, too much, right? And so then it's very hard to sort of have this neutral stance.
Yeah.
And I think it's also probably really hard for that third partner, that partner then to be like, oh, wait a minute, like you're actually his or her individual therapist. So how really neutral are you with this moving, And so I just don't do it. I find it unethical. I know there are some therapists out there that do it. I just personally, I just don't. I stay away from that.
Yeah. And I think that's that collaboration that Dena and I have found has been really effective, is that we are able to work, really well together and are in alignment with our therapeutic approaches.
Yeah.
So I have a curveball question for the both of you off of that topic. You kind of touched it, but I'm just curious from my own perspective and then my own knowledge. When you think of couples counseling, how often is the issue related to the one individual, or like you said, the individual problems? And I only say this because me and my wife obviously had issues when I was going through all of my mental health stuff. Since proper recovery and proper treatment, obviously my attitude, my mentality, and my mindset have all changed. Don't get me wrong, we still argue, we still bicker. Anyone that says their marriage is perfect and you never fight probably has the worst marriage on the face of this earth, because it's impossible to not have conflict. But I realized from a perspective, and and it's like when people think of couples counseling, I don't want to feel like I'm putting anybody on the spot. From a first responder's perspective, though, I feel like a lot of our issues were stemming from my own issues. And really I was blaming her for my own issues. And that makes it challenging, I feel like, in a couples therapy, when you have to call that one person out saying, well, you see, 99% of your problems is you. So I'm just curious if that is a common occurrence or something, especially in the first responder realm, or anywhere they take, their job takes a exponential toll on their mentality, and then trying to navigate a relationship, if that seems to be a common problem.
Do you want to take that? I look at it as I think a relationship is two people, right? And so I think it's really hard to say, like, you are the 99% reason why this relationship is having problems, because the other person is still probably in a lot of ways reacting poorly, or could learn better ways to react or respond differently towards you that may be more helpful for the relationship, right? And so it's not really about pointing blame necessarily, but it's more maybe about, learning how to respond to each other. I often use that with couples, like, are we reacting or are we responding? Right? Because when we react, that's like not putting a lot of thought behind it. That's more emotional. But when we respond to someone, that's sort of being more mindful. That's sort of when we've been able to take a pause, maybe put some thought behind it. We're sort of protecting the relationship when we respond to something. When we talk about, you talked a little bit about conflict. I mean, every relationship's going to have conflict. I mean, that's inevitable. There's such a thing as healthy conflict. When you have healthy conflict with your partner, you can come out of it and you can actually have a sense of like resilience together, right? You can actually feel like, hey, we did that. Like we can talk about uncomfortable stuff and come out on top. And we can almost feel like a sense of connection with one another after that. Where it becomes unhealthy is when you have unhealthy conflict and then you have to do all the repair work afterwards, because during the conflict, you said all these things that now your feelings are hurt because of the things that were said during the conflict, right? And so it's often about how do you teach each other how to have that healthy conflict? And so even when there's maybe one person that may be the source of some of these things because of substance use or because of some of the things that maybe feeling like the bigger issue in the relationship, it's also teaching the other partner, how can we respond more appropriately to some of these things so that there's more healthy conflict, that we're actually aiding the relationship, that we're protecting the relationship, that we're not just sort of setting it on fire and having big emotional reactions that are exacerbating things.
Well, and as we all know, firefighters are really, well, first responders in general have lots of emotion. We're really good at numbing it all out, but we're also really bad about keeping our emotions inside because it comes out full force. So I will say, like, one of the things I do, whether it's healthy or not, you guys can therapy me on this one and tell me if I'm actually being beneficial or not, or doing healthy conflict. Like when if me and my wife are in a conflict, I will say it. I've become doing it more often because I'm more conscious of where I'm at emotionally. I will say, like, I'm done with this conversation. Nothing I say from this point on is going to benefit this conflict. So I'm just going to essentially and I know you're going to yell at me for this term, I'm going to shut down for like 10 or 15 minutes. We'll address this later or tomorrow or tonight, whenever. But I know if I continue this conversation, my rational thought is gone and my emotional thought is taking over, and nothing is going to be beneficial from what I say.
And yet that's beautiful, right? We call that the power of the pause, right? I mean, there's so much power in that. There really is. The key to that is that you have to come back to it though, right? Because oftentimes what happens is couples shut down and then they like let it go and then they never have any resolve. They never come back. And then they come and they see me and they're like, we never resolve our conflict. And I'm like, well, tell me what happens. And they're like, well, we explode and then we walk away and then we just go on with our day. And then the next day happens. And then we just are like, we have kids, we have work, we whatever. And then we just never resolve anything. And then this pile of unresolved issues is becoming higher and higher and higher and higher, right? And so the power of the pause is perfect, but you have to make a promise to one another and to yourself that you're actually going to come back and resolve it when your level of emotionality has like come down and you're in a more rational headspace.
Yeah. I think the plus of your example, Michael, is being able to say, like, I'm gonna walk away and let's come back in 10, 15 minutes, right? You've communicated, you've used some language to say, all right, we're gonna circle back on this in this amount of time. And you might circle back in 15 minutes and go, actually, I think I need 15 more minutes. But the commitment to circle back and touch base and acknowledge that it's still important to you and that you're still thinking about it. And you're also prioritizing your own self-care and your own, self-soothing to the thing that's really activating and stressing you out. So you pass that test because you communicate the time limit. You don't just abandon and walk away without any intention to come back together again.
I have a pretty funny couples conflict resolution story that still continues in our marriage. Before we were married, Becca was working nights in the ER. I worked for a very busy fire department, and work would just kick both of our asses, and then neither of us were sleeping at either job, so the sleep schedule was messed up. The biggest fight Becca and I have ever had in our marriage was actually over a duvet cover. So for those who aren't familiar, it's a pillowcase that goes over your comforter to dress up the bed, but it is also large and cumbersome, and it never makes sense how it works no matter how many times you try. And we ended up screaming at each other. We lived in a very small house in the city, and so it kind of, really put it in a pressure cooker because we were in a plaster bedroom, and we're fighting with this duvet cover, and my ideas aren't working and her ideas are not my ideas, and we're going back and forth, and there was screaming, and she left the house. So she took a tactical pause there and went up to Target, which we lived by at the time, and it was a couple days of tension. And what's funny about that in our marriage now, and without therapy, this is something couples can learn from when we talk about resilience. We still have duvet covers, which is wild. That for me, that should have been the end of it because of the point of contention. But we still have them, and now the duvet cover is put on by one of us. It is not a couple's thing to do together because it didn't work. It was our biggest fight. And the funny thing now is that the person who does the duvet cover, that's the sacrifice in the relationship for the other person. We both hate it, which is why we both exploded on each other, almost 15 years ago. But now it's like you come home and like, the duvet cover's done. It's like, babe, thanks. I know you hated that. I know you hate that thing, and you did that for me. And there was no opportunity for us to fight about it, which is funny because we'll be doing laundry, and with 4 boys, you'd never stop doing laundry. But it'll just kind of lay in a ball on the bed, like, okay, who's going to take it on? But that's like a little hidden sacrifice within our relationship because we know where it came from. And it's always interesting. It's kind of just something that comes up, a couple times a year, of who is going to change that duvet cover because of where it all started.
I love that story. And I love the circle of like how you were able to get to a place of playfulness and humor, and like truly that's what relationships are about, right? We want to be able to enjoy them. We want to be able to be playful. We want to be able to laugh and to have these, kind of inside jokes or memories with each other. And that's a hilarious. I love that story. And I also
and so relatable as well, because the minute you
cover.
said that, I was like, oh my gosh, I just washed my duvet cover last week, and you could have seen me by myself as I was like trying to like get the corners, and I was sweating, and I was just like,
I know. It's a workout in and of itself.
It's bad. Yeah.
No, I think we nailed some great topics with relationships for sure, and I'm really glad I don't have a duvet. At least I don't think I do. I'll be honest. If Cheyenne asked me to put a duvet cover on, I would probably go to the kitchen because I have no idea what that is. You guys have clarified to where at least I know it goes on the bed. That's as far as I've gotten. But as we're going into time here, I did want to touch on one topic that I find very interesting because I get asked this a lot, and this is for Lindsay because she does the brain spotting. I was at a conference last week and I got asked like 3 times, what is brain spotting? And the best answer I can give them is it is new age EMDR. And I don't know if that's just kind of what I've gotten out of it. But I would love for you to kind of explain a little bit in detail what people to expect from that, what it benefits, how it helps, just a whole 9 yards on it.
Absolutely. And, that could be, trauma and different trauma therapies and, approaches to trauma within therapy could be a whole nother episode. Right. And I'm sure that will continue to evolve and come up as you move forward with different episodes. But essentially brain spotting, it did evolve from EMDR in its own way. So the kind of tagline for brain spotting is where you look affects how you feel. And so with EMDR, and I can't speak a whole lot to it because I don't have the training in EMDR, but from what I know is that it's pretty prescribed in the sense that there's, steps that the practitioner does specifically for processing, and there's eye movement. That's the EMDR part, eye movement. So with brain spotting, when it was evolved, the David Grand, who founded brain spotting, realized that when he stopped on a particular spot, which now is referred to the brain spot, that the person that they were working with ended up processing a whole lot of emotions in a pretty quick way through that process. And so EMDR is a bottom down or bottom up therapy, which means it connects to the lower parts of our brain where trauma and memories and distress are stored in the lower parts of our brain, where the top part of our brain is more of that cognitive and rational part of our brain. And so the cool thing about brain spotting and what people tend to like about it is that you don't have to talk to process. So with brain spotting, this is a pointer that's used in brain spotting for people who are seeing any sort of video. But the practitioner and the client work together to identify where the brain spot is, and people can recognize that when they look at different spots, that they notice maybe some sort of sensations or activation within their body associated with how they're feeling. The interesting thing about working with first responders in brain spotting is, as you guys may, have some awareness to, is that you can kind of become disconnected from your body because you're always in that fight or flight, experience where it's like your body is protecting you. So you might not be as connected to what your body's feeling. And so you work on developing awareness with that. But brain spotting just helps people process things within their head and their bodies. And they don't have to talk about it. Their bodies are just doing the healing on their own through this experience of holding their gaze at this space, which is called the brain spot. That is very, very like open-ended. But again, I would be more than happy to talk more about it in another episode sometime. But essentially, it's just like it lets you feel a little bit lighter and not as weighed down or like wound tight or emotionally angry and on edge. So it's just a really cool like body-based therapy to help process through stuff that is stored in our bodies. We know that we hold on to memories and experiences and emotions within our bodies. And it's just a really kind of cool and helpful way to do therapy that's not talk. So that's it at this moment.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I think it's one of those things, and I say it all the time, options are great. More and more options for people to try different sorts of treatment and different sorts of resiliency training and therapy and things like that. Because we're not all built the same. We're not all wired the same. So having different ways to do it. Because I'm going to get ready to start EMDR here in about a couple weeks. And it's been a process to start EMDR. We go through all kinds of steps and certain talks and picking out certain traumas to address first or last, and it's crazy how much stress I have from just talking about, and just like my therapist coming up and saying, hey, what's a memory that you want to start with? Yeah. It's like, well, I have 9 million of them. How much time do you have? Yeah. And that's only in the 4-month period I was in crisis. So, do you want to address my entire life? Because we're going to be working until I'm like 80. Right. So it's just the perspective that I have on it. So I could see where brain spotting would have a different kind of feeling going into it, knowing that I don't have to necessarily pinpoint exactly what is bothering me the most.
Yeah, absolutely. That is something that's pretty cool about it, is you don't have to necessarily, pick one particular specific traumatic event. The reality is that we all have experienced, significant events, and they're complex, right? And they all kind of layer on each other, and then all of it's just kind of stored up in our nervous system like a big, spider web, Halloween reference. So with brain spotting, it all helps kind of work itself out in a pretty holistic way.
I love the holistic way.
Yeah.
I'm big on the holistics.
Yeah. So.
Well, great. Now I found out I have brain spots. Thanks, Mike.
Our brains are full of spots.
We all have them.
Well, I was going to make the joke I didn't want to interrupt your description. I was going to be like, because you said wherever your gaze, you feel an emotional response. And it's like, no matter where I look, I have an emotional response. So does that mean like I just have one spot and it's my entire brain?
No, we have so many different spots across the whole field. And mind you, like where we look affects how we feel, and that, we might be talking about the tough emotions right now or the ones that are uncomfortable, but that also means that where we look can bring feelings and sensations of comfort and resource and joy as well. So so we can also tap into those brain spots in a therapeutic session, which can actually help kind of process this hard stuff in a safer way for folks, because we don't certainly want to re-traumatize or make the whole therapeutic process even that much more scary, where we want people to not do it again.
Yeah, Mike and I have actually we talked about that with some new academy recruits last winter. We brought that up, and something that I don't think I learned it in therapy. I learned it somewhere else. But with the amount of energy that we place into suppressing emotion or suppressing traumas and bad things that happen to us, it becomes a pathway and a pattern. And we start blocking all those bad emotions, those heavy emotions. But then we end up, you can't experience the happies and the joys because you become emotionless. And I had a story for Mike in that class that that happened to me. And you know I couldn't figure out. I used to be a happy guy. I'm better now. But there was a period where I couldn't experience happiness or joy. And it was because I was blocking out so much negative and such heavy emotions that there were no emotions to be had. So it was a survival instinct within fight or flight to act like that. So when we talk about brain spotting, I can see that being really useful because I had to figure that out on my own. I wish you would have brought your pointer and pointed out all my bad spots. So yeah, so here we are, answering my own questions. And I hope other people kind of hear what I have to say and then hear that there is something out there where we don't have to go to therapy, or therapy for that matter, but we can maybe I think first responders really need help looking internally. Why am I doing the things that I'm doing? And a lot of times we're not even aware we're doing the things that we're doing. And from a spouse's or a partner's standpoint, they may be too scared to say something because of our emotional outbursts. So if we kind of wrap up here by bringing it all together, in couples therapy, how do we get our spouses and partners to bring up our shortcomings or the things that they're noticing? And then where do we go from there? Do we need to seek treatment? Do we need to seek therapy? But how do we break the stigma of talking about it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have that one little highlight that 1 in 10 couples seek couples counseling, and those that do typically do it up to like 6 years after the first sign of concern is presenting itself. And so that's like driving on your check engine light for 6 years, which is a really long time. So being able to just to kind of normalize and acknowledge that we can approach this in a way that's really comfortable, or not uncomfortable, but at least is sensitive to the people that are coming in.
Yeah, I think, Nick, you nailed a very good topic there. And we are running short on time, so we're not going to dive too far into it. But your spouse not being able to tell you what's going on because of your responses, because they're already prepared for what the response is going to be. My wife tells me all the time. And if she does let it loose, my emotional response comes out. She goes, "This is why I don't tell you anything. This is why I don't bring anything up. This is why we don't talk about anything, because I know how you're going to react." And it's where it's like, all right, well, how do I work on myself on my reactions? But also, how can she address a situation to where it doesn't spur an emotional response? And I think that's where we were talking about earlier, is how sometimes it's not just one party's problem. Just because I can't emotionally control my anger at all times doesn't mean that the way she approached the conversation wasn't maybe in an attack way to where I felt attacked. So I think that's where, like you said, the driving with the check engine light for 6 years, maybe if you addressed it when it first popped on, you wouldn't be stuck in that vicious cycle of, well, we can't talk about anything because I don't know how to react and you don't know how to bring it up.
Yeah, it's a hard cycle to get out of, for sure.
I think the phrase that my mom used to do this to us, and it's funny. It's way more useful later in life. And Dena, well, actually, both of you probably understand this one, but a phrase that we need to learn when it comes to conflict with whether it's our kids, our coworkers, our spouses. When we notice things, you have to say, "I'm just asking. I'm not attacking." And I think sometimes that kind of takes the edge off of like, well, I'm curious. I don't need this to go any further. I'm not trying to trick you into having that emotional response, but I'm just asking, I'm not attacking. And it's worked a lot of the times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think the more we can stay curious and ask questions, I think that elicits obviously more clarity, right? And so then from your partner, it comes across as like you just want to know more, you're curious versus like you're more accusatory,
Sure.
right? You're coming at me, you're sort of like, you already know how you think, how I feel, you think you know what's wrong with me, you're presuming things. And if you ask, then a lot of times people will give you a rational response, right? And so if we stay curious, oftentimes with our partner, and just continue to sort of ask the questions, well, what did you mean by that? Help me understand why you reacted like that, versus like, I don't know why you reacted like that, or you always react like that, or this is why I can't talk to you because you react like that, versus saying like, help me understand why you reacted like that just now. You're going to get two different responses. One's going to shut somebody down, and one's going to make someone sort of pause and go, well, because I had blah, 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 blah. And you're going to get a different kind of response. Right. So, it's about psychoeducation too, right? I mean, we can always get better at communicating. It's funny. I tell people, we tell toddlers all the time, like, use your words. And then somehow as adults, we forget to use our words, right? I mean, we somehow throw a lot of really good communication skills out the window with our most important, most intimate relationships. And so it really just becomes like sort of learning how to do that again and keeping it kind of front and center. And being mindful. And the big word that I use with couples a lot is intentional. In order for relationships to be successful, you have to put a lot of intention behind them. And so, with that, I know we're short on time. We could go on and on and on. I guess this means you have to have us back on.
Yes, we will definitely be having you guys back on. And me and Nick learned this last week too, or the last one we did too, is we either need to make these like 4 hours long or somehow just pick one topic, because it's amazing how quickly we'll just start the conversation. That's why I always say, like, there's no script other than the opening lines. Outside of that, it's just conversation. And I feel like we could fill a 4 to 8 hour video every week if we wanted to. But no, I think we touched a lot of great topics today. And I think we cleared a lot of, minds when it comes to people to listen to this, and our viewers that'll kind of look back and hear some of the advice and hear some of the ways to not be scared of therapy, or your scarapy. Wow, that's hard to say.
It was easier to type.
Yeah. But so we are out of time at this time. So I'm going to give Lindsay and Dena, I want you to give me one empowering takeaway that you'd like our listeners to walk away about with the connection for individual healing and with your relationships thriving. Just one good piece of information to walk away with.
Stay curious, stay open, and keep breathing.
Love that. I think mine's going to be, anytime you're talking, replace but with and. So when you're saying something, when you say but and then you keep going, it negates what you just said. But if you replace but and say and, then both things can exist. And a lot of times your person that you're talking to won't become as defensive.
No, never thought of that. I like that. Nick, would you like to add one empowering takeaway?
Yeah, make the sacrifice. take the
Love
duvet
it.
cover on yourself. So I think a lot of times in relationships, we are a team, but all teammates make sacrifices for the better of the team. And look into your own relationship, what sacrifices you can make to make the relationship better.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Love that.
I love it. So I will add Lindsay and Dena's bios into the link for this. I will also add links to their website. So if you have any further questions for those two, you're, I would imagine, more than welcome to reach out to either one of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So always reach out if you need help. They are here to help. We will definitely be having them on again because I feel like we could fill another full episode, if not 6 or 7 more. But like I said, I will link all of their stuff with their information on it so you can answer those. And then obviously Break the Stigma Inc. You can visit us on our website, www.breakthestigmainc.com. All of our socials are at Break the Stigma Inc. Their information will also be available there. And as we said in our last episode and all future episodes, if you have any questions, concerns, or things you would like us to cover, please email us at breakthestigmainc.com or at gmail.com, or reach out on the socials or any of us individually, and we will try to cover any topics that we feel might benefit any first responders. And from that, I appreciate all of our listeners for coming out today, and we hope to see you on the next one.
Happy Halloween.
See you guys. Go to therapy.
Bye.
Scaring that. I love that.